Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the shocking story of Clint Eastwood finally breaks at 94. No comment on John. Clinton was the birthplace of Wayne Clint Eastwood. Eastwood Jr. in San Francisco on May 31, 1930. Eastwood, Francisco, California, grew up. His early years during the Great Depression. Life was characterized by financial difficulties. Yet additionally, it fostered a strong sense of robustness and independence that would subsequently describe a large portion of his film persona. His professional path is evidence of his adaptability and growth, transformed from a tough TV cowboy to a renowned filmmaker whose films continuing to influence the terrain of the early years of Eastwood's modern cinema. He spent time in the Bay Area, attended a number of schools, including his father attended Oakland Technical High School, worked for a steel company, and his mom was a working-class secretary who grew up. Clint discovered the importance of diligent labor from a young age. He had a difficult upbringing, which included shifting regularly because of the economic instability at that period. He created an early passion for music and playing the trumpet later on. But first the piano. It was his passion for sports and the outdoors which resulted in his initial employment. This involved time spent working as a lifeguard and a student at the University of Seattle. The breakthrough for Clint Eastwood occurred in 1955, when he secured a minor part in the TV show Rawhide Deed, which was the start of his ascent to prominence. But in the 1960s, a real breakthrough role was played. His depiction of the stoic rough as Sergio's unnamed nail artist. The trilogy of Leon's dollars. These movies, 1964's A Fistful of Dollars, 1965, and The Good, For a Few Dollars More, The Ugly, and The Bad, 1966, made Eastwood a household name. His depiction of the morally stoic, uncertain anti-hero became a defining characteristic of the genre of Western music and established his status as a global symbol. Following the career of Eastwood in the Dollars trilogy surpassed the Western genre in scope. Began to be associated with pasta westerns, were a type of movie that were mostly made in Italy and included anti-hero violence and a glaringly grim realism that stood in stark contrast to the westerns in America that were more sterile. Period. His gruff voice is frequently quiet. Performances were accompanied by the famous Ennio Morricone is the composer of music scores, enhancing the movie's everlasting appeal. The success of classics Eastwood as a top eventually man in westerns led to the Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan's role, starting with the Dirty Harry series. The character in the 1971 movie Dirty Harry of the hard-nosed Harry Callahan, a police officer with no nonsense, became one of Eastwood's most well-known and timeless roles. The tagline for the movie, "Do you feel the phrase, lucky punk?" is among the most enduring quotations in the history of cinema, summarizing the persona of relentless tenacity and Eastwood's tough guy persona, which ran for 5 movies. And Eastwood's depiction of Callahan struck a profound chord with viewers, confirming his position in the film industry one of the best actions in history. Celebrities of the 1970s and 1980s. Eastwood started acting beyond his comfort zone. Muscles that go beyond the functions of the powerful, a quiet man demonstrating his capacity to many different genres, such as drama. He starred in comedies and action movies like Escape from the Gauntlet, 1977, Alcatraz, Everywhere But Loose, 1978, and 1979. His humorous timing, in addition to his typical by the 1990s, Eastwood's action skills had become a well-known personality not just in front and behind the camera. Eastwood's acting career, however, was solidly established. He quickly tried to expand his creative horizons by he made his directorial debut after For Me, with Play Misty, a thriller about a crazy fan from 1971. The movie, who stalks a radio DJ, was an achievement, and Eastwood's abilities as the director was immediately identified, as accompanied by a wide range of movies like As Josie Wales's The Outlaw, a 1976 Western that received accolades for its thorough examination of topics like justice, redemption, and retribution. Eastwood's career as a filmmaker reached the 1990s and 2000s, reaching new heights with a number of highly regarded movies. Unforgiven, a revisionist western from 1992 that questioned conventional depictions of heroism and violence, won 4 Academy Prizes such as Best Image and Best Director. This was a pivotal moment in Eastwood's career during his change from largely being seen as a star to appreciated the film's subtle telling compelling stories, putting on powerful performances, and dismantling of the Western genre strengthened Eastwood's standing as one of the finest filmmakers of his time. Over the course of the 2000s and 2000s, Eastwood remained a producer and director. Movies that examined difficult subjects like as personal sacrifice and war patriotism, movies such as Mystic River 2004, Flags of the $1 Million Baby of 2003, Gran Torino 2008, and Our Fathers 2006, demonstrated his capacity to operate in various genres while preserving his distinctive emphasis on profoundly human. $1 Million Baby was a story especially prosperous, obtaining Eastwood another Academy Award for Best Director in addition to an Oscar for Best Picture. The legacy of Eastwood extends beyond his accomplishments in acting and directing had a significant influence on American film, impacting future generations of filmmakers with his raw reality and simple style and investigation of intricate moral inquiries. His art is renowned for its subdued tones, minimal conversation, and character-driven stories, which makes him a master of presenting stories using images. Eastwood's impact can be seen not just in Hollywood, as well as the larger cultural context in which his pictures frequently address issues of personal masculinity, accountability, and the effects of violence that provides viewers with an unwavering perception of human nature. His depiction of damaged individuals who battle with their pasts has struck a chord with viewers all throughout the world, appreciating his work everlasting. Surpassing his contributions to Eastwood has also been involved with politics while serving as Carmel's mayor in 1986 to 1988 by the Sea, California. He has been a vocal supporter of individual liberty and small government with a combination of political ideologies, conservative that is deeply respectful of personal liberties. Clint Eastwood's transformation from a budding young performer to among the most significant directors of all time is an amazing tale of perseverance, willpower, and artistic vision. For the span of over 6 Eastwood has been pushing for decades the evolution of his craft's boundaries from a rough person to a well-respected actor-filmmaker whose works have become landmarks in the film industry's history. Career has been distinguished by audacious decisions, a steadfast dedication to his art, and a commitment to narrating tales that, as Eastwood, challenge and inspire. Keeps working well into his 90s. Influence on the motion picture business is still present, more powerful than ever. His films have garnered not simply praise from critics but also a devoted following that includes generations. The contributions of Eastwood to cinema and culture and his legacy are incalculable, will keep influencing the world of amusement for many years to come. He is a man whose work is a true Hollywood legend, has made a lasting impression on the cinematic history. Clint Eastwood, the renowned producer, director, and actor, has gone through 2 widely reported divorces during his lifetime. These divorces influenced not just his personal upbringing, but also influenced his public perception of each relationship being part of his complicated and complex voyage. Eastwood's first marriage, to a woman named Maggie Johnson long earlier, in the early 1950s, he met their marriage during his ascent to popularity in the year 1953, when Eastwood was starting to make a name for himself in California-born Hollywood. Maggie was a model, and they had a long marriage. For 31 years, regardless of how long their union, it was a challenging time that ultimately resulted in a divorce, and the causes of their breakup in 1984 were extensively conjectured, but were mainly ascribed to Eastwood's growing popularity, as well as his many infidelity during their marriage. Eastwood was frequently away from home for business. This distance, along with commitments with his notorious infidelity, eventually tendencies caused a rift. The couple have 2 children together. Children while they were married, including a son, Kyle, and Allison, their daughter, who were both raised in the stresses brought on by their father's increasing fame. Despite the fact that their parents divided, Eastwood kept a relationship with his kids, and they grew up leading prosperous lives of their own. But the separation from Maggie Johnson signaled the start of the new phase of Eastwood's life that would see him connected romantically to a number of more women, in addition to entering into a second marriage in 1996. Following a string of connections and liaisons for the second time, Eastwood got married. Dina Reese, Dina, the actress, they were married, and he was 35 years his junior. Following a brief period of dating the pairs, at first, the partnership was perceived as one of love, and the 2 of them had a daughter. Morgan was born in, but Eastwood's second marriage in 1996 likewise turned out to be turbulent, but for various causes. But Eastwood had by then made a name for himself as an Hollywood star's marriage to Dina was covered by the media quite a bit. Examination over time, rumors started to circulate, rumors that their union was tense because of Eastwood's private actions that demonstrate his unwavering dedication to labor and his propensity to be emotionally aloof. In addition to some believe that the age of the couple disparity was one of the causes of their difficulties. The 13-year marriage ended before in 2014. It also ended in divorce. The split was cordial, with both parties making declarations highlighting mutual regard and comprehension. In spite of, Eastwood persisted in their separation by keep his relationship with his daughter Morgan tight. Continuing to play an active part in her life, Dina Reese was also successful in creating her own employment as a TV personality, and after their divorce, the journalist, this marriage's dissolution was a major Eastwood's life at that time, as it signified this was the second time he had left Clint Eastwood's married for a long time. Divorces are a significant component of his individual background, illuminating his connections and occasionally complex perspective on family and love his unions reveal. A man who, in spite of his success and notoriety, were hampered by striking a balance between his personal life and career public image. These incidents also brought about acknowledgement of the sacrifices made by many of his relatives were forced to make as an outcome of his dedication to his work, and the difficulties associated with being. Clint is still married to a Hollywood legend. Eastwood's capacity to keep up a connection with his kids and maintain their relevance in the entertainment sector speaks to his tenacity and resolve, in addition to his potential for personal development. And Clint Eastwood, a professional at 94 years old, has experienced a life full of prominent parts in classic movies and a career that has characterized the terrain for many years. Hollywood was a living legend, and his career encompasses every meaning of the word. More than 70 years, and his impact on directing and performing are both incalculable, but for all the honors and victories he's gained over one item he has retained over the years comparatively silent regarding his connection to one of Hollywood's John Wayne and other titans. Following years of Clint, conjecture, hearsay, and curiosity, at last, Eastwood has made the decision to break his lack of response regarding Eastwood, renowned for being stoic and a reputation for speaking only when necessary, hasn't talked about his "This is my opinion about John Wayne." Particularly fascinating in light of the fact that Wayne, commonly referred to as the Duke, was an adored character in the American Western genre and region, that Eastwood would ultimately become the dominant of the most well-known names in Westerns, have a large following, and industry insiders had pondered whether there was any personal relationship or competition between them, or whether their paths had intersected in addition to their responsibilities within the genre. Though when did Eastwood decide to speak? Wayne is important since both actors have had significant, and enduring effects on Clint's Western genre. His ascent to stardom was mostly made possible by his part as the nameless man in the spaghetti Western trilogy by Sergio Leone, like as 1964's A Fistful of Dollars for an additional few dollars, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1965. These movies from 1966 were a dramatic deviation from the conventional Hollywood. John Wayne starred in westerns. Wayne's movies, however, tended to represent the valiant, honorable, and greater-than-life. The roles of American cowboy Eastwood frequently offered a more sinister and unclear moral picture. Represent a sharp contrast with the figure that waves the American flag. Wayne appeared in interviews throughout the years. Eastwood has not said much about Wayne, perhaps as a result of the enormous disparity between their performing approaches and public identities, but Eastwood's remarks have frequently demonstrated a significant amount of regard for Wayne's involvement in the movie industry. The challenge was still, how did Eastwood have a unique personality? Method of filmmaking. According to John Wayne and his influence on Hollywood at the age of 94, at last, Eastwood spoke up. Expressing his most open opinions to date, having a private discussion at an industry gathering, Eastwood considered the John Wayne's famous picture that has lasted for generations. He recognized the enormous Wayne's level of fame as a movie star. In addition to his impact on the John was a huge man in the Western genre in every way. Eastwood remarked, considering he was bigger than life in his career and his depiction of characters. But that's a portion of the whole image that each of us has our personal perceptions of its meaning. Being a hero in Eastwood means being a cowboy. Clarified that whereas Wayne's the famous depiction of the Western hero, he didn't necessarily desire the role. Wayne's characters were frequently imitated by concerning good and bad, right and wrong, and not much in between, and that's okay. However, I've always thought that life is a much more intricate than Eastwood. Later, he continued to provide more details about his own method of acting that included portraying ethically upright persons, unclear and not at all one-dimensional characters that frequently appeared in Wayne's. Eastwood's characters in movies were frequently honest, flawed, and practical individuals who faced moral conundrums and made choices that weren't always obvious in spite of the clear disparities in their behavior. Eastwood wasn't afraid to try new styles. Expressing gratitude for Wayne's contributions, he had his own approach, and Eastwood is really successful at it. Declared. His influence on what American film in general and westerns in particular, I've always been grateful for his actions, even if I wasn't entirely in agreement with. Moreover, Eastwood admitted that even though they might not have ever shared the similar outlook regarding their depictions of masculinity on television, he admired Wayne's steadfast sense of professionalism as well as his capacity to captivate audiences. The power was too strong to ignore. As he entered a situation, according to Eastwood, he had this presence, this indisputable natural force, and you can't pretend to be that. And besides talking about Wayne's legacy, additionally, Eastwood discussed their personal interactions, or rather their absence. While they were both in comparable Hollywood royalty circles, they were never given the opportunity to work together on film, but they didn't grow. We had a deep personal friendship. Various Hollywood eras, but we had Eastwood. Respect for one another, considering that we didn't really hang out. Rather, I believe we both recognized our roles in the sector. This discovery was an important one since it gave fans and reviewers with a more complex comprehension of Clint Eastwood, a man who established himself in the Western genre field, regarding one of the genres for decades. The first giants had been an underlying interest in if Eastwood ever experienced being overshadowed by the larger-than-life character of John Wayne, a former major impact on a new generation of moviegoers. Eastwood, now in his 90s, was at last willing to accept the indisputable Wayne's influence on the genre and his own professional path. Even if their philosophies on screen changed as Eastwood keeps working as a producer and director in his thoughts on John Wayne over the years remind us of the fact that despite their differences frequently have a profound appreciation for one another's artistic abilities. Although their positions may have differed, both the Western genre has been influenced by men and methods that still have an impact on movies in many respects. Today is Clint Eastwood's choice to voice concerns about John Wayne represents the wider development of the Western music itself, which started as a straightforward story of virtue versus evil, has changed into a more intricate and thoughtful investigation of the human state. And while Clint Eastwood gets ready for his potentially last years in the sector, it is evident that the heritage of John Wayne and his own volition continuing to influence the terrain of movies for future